Out here, it's not only the amazing views, but the way time stretches out a little longer and how the breeze hits just right at the summit. With All Trails, you can discover nature's best with over 450,000 trails around the world. Download the free app today.
Hello, everyone. I just want to tell you about a podcast I think you'll enjoy. If you're like me, I'm always on the podcast apps looking for something else scary to add to my feed. And this one is called The Most Terrifying Places in America by the Travel Channel. On the podcast, they visit some of the creepiest locations across the United States. They go to a hotel in New England where guests wake up and they're covered in scratches. My personal favourite is the one where there's a church in the middle of the woods and the security guards have to stay there for the night, and it's really, really creepy. There's so many different places on there. Get yourself a nice coffee or tea, pop it on and enjoy. Listen to The Most Terrifying Places in America wherever you get your podcast.
Out here, it's not only the amazing views, but the way time stretches out a little longer and how the breeze hits just right at the summit. With All Trails, you can discover nature's best with over 450,000 trails around the world. Download the free app today.
Hello, I'm Sarah, and welcome to Day 2 of Summer of Fear. I've got 2 spooky stories to share today. I'll get straight into them. Are you ready for the first story? Sasquatch in northern Minnesota, my story. In the summer of 2012, I took a job as an expedition canoe guide on the Boundary Waters in northern Minnesota, Quitico, southern Ontario. These are massive wilderness area of lakes and land. I was working for the Boy Scouts, and we were based on Moose Lake on the US side. My job was to facilitate a fun and safe multi-day trip, anywhere from 7 to 12 days out. Most of that summer was typical, but one expedition in particular still haunts me as a result of what happened to us over the course of a few days. Here is the full account. My crew was on the younger side. There were 9 of us total, the maximum allowed in a group per hour permit. There were 6 scouts, 2 adult advisors, scoutmasters, and myself. They had wanted to do a 200-miler, but didn't have the physical ability, so we had to amend our route. They were bummed out, so I decided to take them to a waterfall called Eddie's Falls. It's pretty flat up there, so a waterfall is somewhat rare. But that decision would end up putting us in the path of something. We visited the falls and camped near to it. That evening, I had the boys working on camp setup, while the advisors worked on fire for dinner. I was collecting firewood in a big tangle of downed trees, brush and bramble. I could faintly hear the falls off to my left, when out of nowhere, I hear the most unearthly scream/roar I've ever heard. It stopped me dead in my tracks and I was frozen. The second scream was closer, and the third closer. I couldn't see anything due to the thickness of the brush, but whatever this was, it was coming directly at me. By the fourth scream, I could feel it in my chest. I got nauseous and involuntarily barked at it. I've never before or since heard that sound come out of my body. The fifth scream almost physically hurt, but it snapped me back to reality and I ran back to camp. My crew had heard it too, but what am I to tell them? I claimed it was a boar. There's no boar up there, and the advisors knew I was lying, but didn't call my bluff. After dinner, they went to their tents, and I retired to my hammock about 50 yards from camp. As a rule, I always set my hammock at my head height, so about 6 feet up. I would use a tarp over my body and head to keep the morning dew off and the morning mosquitoes at bay. But the tarp wasn't strung up. That's important. It was just loosely over me. It must have been about 3 to 4 a.m. when I was awakened by what sounded to me like a woman sobbing. Not an outright cry, but a sob. At the same time, I'm hearing something walking through the thick brush, down past my feet. So I listen, totally still and quiet as it crosses into camp. I could hear the change from brush to granite rock, but could still hear its heavy footfalls as it walked right through camp and on towards me. At this point, the tarp is still over my head, so I can't see a thing, and I don't know what to do. In no time, it was standing right next to me. I could hear the breathing, loud and congested sounding. I could smell the musk. I could feel its enormous presence only inches from my body, just standing there. Time to make a decision. I suddenly threw the tarp off of my head, and as I did this, my left hand touched this thing in the chest. It was dark, but I could make out briefly a very large upright figure. The hair on it was long and coarse. The musculature was impressive. Bodybuilder status, pectoral, is what I touched. It all happened in a second, and as soon as my hand made contact, it bolted back into the brush with immense speed for such thick debris. By the time I got my headlamp on, it was gone. My crew had slept through it all, so I read until the sun came up and decided not to mention it. The next day, we moved on a few miles towards base camp and camped on a small island. Campsites on the US side are designated by a fire pit and a grumper, which is a fiberglass toilet over a deep hole. We were just arriving and it was evening. One of the adult advisors needed to visit the grumper, so he walked towards it. About 2 minutes later, we heard him yelling and he came running back to camp, still pulling his pants up, and said that he'd seen a gorilla run right in front of him. I asked if maybe it was a bear, and he said absolutely not. That he'd hunted bear for years, and it was not no bear. It was a monkey, and it was about 9 feet tall. At this height estimate, I'm imagining being back in my hammock. If I touched the chest, and I was about 6 feet off the ground, that puts the head close to 9 feet up. Was it stalking us? Were there more than one? The boys are now scared. Time to mitigate. I suggest a night paddle. No one's sleeping anymore anyway. So we pack back up and set out at around 8 p.m. and paddled by headlamp for several miles. My plan was to get back onto Moose Lake and camp very near to base so we could be the first crew off water the following day. Moose Lake is connected to Newfound Lake by a small pinch and a channel of water that's not deep or wide. There's dark woods on both sides. We were right in the middle of the pinch when a rock the size of a basketball came flying out of the woods on the right side and narrowly missed the bow of the canoe I was steering. There's no cliff there. this thing was forcefully thrown at us from the tree line. At this, we paddled like hell. We paddled to the centre of Moose Lake, tied all 3 canoes together, and we sat out there all night. With the sunrise, we paddled to base camp and ended our expedition. They did not want to talk about what happened, and I was okay with that. They left for Oklahoma the next day. After they left, I went to work a shift in the canoe yard, helping crews offload. My buddy Justin got back that day from a trip in the same area we had been in, Bear Loop. And as I was helping him put his boat on the rack, I noticed he had a distant look, almost 1,000-yard stare. I asked how his trip went, and he said it was all good until they hit Knife Lake, Newfound Lake. He said they were being messed with for 2 nights on Knife, and then had a rock thrown at them in Newfound Pinch. Sure enough, for a solid 2 weeks after that, crews kept coming back from that area with very similar stories. One night there was a group of us guides in the staff lodge swapping trail stories, and these encounters came up one after another. Screams, rocks, sightings of apes. Then, from the back corner of the room, I hear a chuckle. It's one of the old veteran guides who's been there for over a decade. All he said was, "It's about time somebody else seen one." I asked how long he'd known they were there. He said he's been encountering them for 10 years. Then he said, "They talk to me." This shocked me. "Like a language?" I asked. "No, they communicate telepathically. The less you acknowledge them, the less they'll bother you. But they can read you, and they like it when you're afraid. It's like a game to them." What happened out there is still a big question in my mind. I've always been open to the idea of Sasquatch. Their existence was never a huge stretch for me. But what really sticks with me is the way that veteran guide spoke of their other intelligence and parapsychological abilities. That they can read human emotion as clear as pages in a book. That they know our species better than we know ourselves. I can imagine that this kind of place is everywhere in the USA. That people know, like the veteran campers, hikers, know that there are Bigfoot out there. And it's just spoken about between them, and perhaps not mentioned to other people because they would say it's a load of rubbish. But you see on all of those documentaries, I am absolutely convinced, because I watch those documentaries and I see. And they all sort of experience similar things, don't they? Rocks flying, being hurled at them, the wood tapping, and the noises and the smell. There are just too many consistencies, and I do believe in Bigfoot. Are you ready for the second story? What happened at Dry River Shelter number 3 one night? Last summer, a good friend and I embarked on a backpacking trip through the White Mountain National Forest in New Hampshire. As fairly experienced day hikers, we felt comfortable in the Whites for our inaugural overnight trip. While planning, my buddy Ellis figured we could hike to a backcountry campsite to make our first wilderness night a little more fun. I wasn't going to disagree. Beautiful views, historic trails, and protected night in the Dry River wilderness. I was stoked to say the least. Before any hiking trip, I do a little internet search on the trails or shelters I'll be coming across. Throughout the mid-late 1900s, there were a series of these lean-tos up and down the Dry River wilderness, meant for backpackers or through hikers really looking to escape the crowds in more popular areas of the forest. Though as time went on and the Forest Service had more and more pressing matters, Many of these shelters were dismantled, except Dry River Shelter Number 3, the last remaining shelter in this wilderness zone. On the morning of our hike, I met Ellis at the trailhead, and we set off. The sky was overcast, bringing with it a dense fog throughout the forest. The weather left us with nearly no visibility, so there went our stunning views. At least the trail consisted of prime, technical New England rock scrambling alongside the Omonosuke River. Ellis and I made it to the Presidential Ridge, stopping by the Lakes of the Clouds. The hut was filled with day hikers, backpackers and through hikers, all socialising together. We were even rewarded with some sun and a brief glimpse of the Dry River Valley on the summit of Mount Monroe, before the fog rolled back in. With dwindling views and a stiff wind, Ellis and I hustled below treeline, down to the Dry River Shelter Number 3, our home for the night. Once we dropped off the ridge into the valley, we entered the wilderness zone, where rangers patrolled sparingly. Time to be really alone in the wild. As we trekked into the wilderness, all signs of civilization disappeared and the trail was densely overgrown. Although it had been raining all week, there were no footprints in the mud either. At least we would have some relaxing isolation, I figured. After about half an hour or so of descending, Ellis spotted the lean-to just as our legs were asking for relief. A gorgeous old timber structure with a well-used fire pit alongside a cold mountain river. Pristine camping. As we settled in and explored the site, I found a small bound notebook nestled into the corner of the structure. On the cover, someone wrote Dry River Shelter Number 3. Out of curiosity, I opened it, but found nothing more than a lone man's name scribbled onto the first page and a date. Just your standard camping log. Oddly though, the man signed the book the previous day. We saw no footprints or signs of human or even animal disturbance on the trails or here at the shelter. Rain can wash away tracks, but not all signs of animal life. Something felt off to me. I showed it to Ellis, who found it curious, but thought nothing more of the single name. He convinced me that the man was probably a hiking veteran and a professional at LNT. I brought into Ellis's thoughts on the situation to ease my mind. As the sun set, we started a roaring fire alongside the riverbank. Ellis commented how quiet the location was, having not seen another soul beyond the chirp of birds since leaving the Crawford path. Silence was eerie, but we figured that city life desensitized us to the wild. The sun was setting, and we grew tired with the darkness. Ellis went to the lean-to, and I spent the night in my tent. Sleep came quickly after hiking 8+ miles with 20 pounds on my back, but this didn't last long. A brutally sharp slapping noise woke me up. The only thing I could compare the noise to would be something swimming a 2x4 into a tree or snapping a thick branch. I figured it was a bear, searching for our food bag, hanging in a tree some 20 to 50 yards away. Nothing out of the ordinary for New Hampshire. Sleep overtook me once again, and I remember waking up to the sun rising over the peaks. I stumbled out of my tent to see Ellis also waking up slowly. As we made our morning oats and coffee, I wandered around the site again to see if I could find the marks the bear left. Instead, I noticed something odd. The small notebook was open. I swear that I put it back where I found it, closed and in the back corner of the shelter, not open on the floor. "Hey Ellis, were you checking out this camp log last night?" "Nah, I passed out, man. It's not like there's anything to read in it anyways, he responded. You sure? I commented as I bent over to pick it up. The lone hiker's name was not so lonely anymore. At least 20 more names filled the pages. The lone traveller, whose name was originally on the first page, could now be found several pages deep into the notebook. I tossed it to Ellis, whose face instantly dropped the second his mind registered what was on the page. Great. Now I knew it wasn't just some dehydration delusion of the previous night. Dude, we must have been seeing things last night. There is no way we missed all those names. How could we? Ellis said. This is when I began to tell Ellis about the slapping noise during the night. I received nothing other than instant denial. These sounds were not the result of some hooligans or backward crazies harassing us. Ellis was convinced. Rather sternly, he commented, "It's a bear, Jack. It's just a bear. Let's go now." And, well, go we did. Ellis led us out of the site, and on our way home, not 10 minutes later. A year has passed, and I'm still not quite sure what happened during our night at the Dry River Shelter number 3. The memory of seeing a single name written on the front page of the notebook is so crisp in my mind. I couldn't have mistaken it. Could I have mistaken the noises I heard and the new additions to the book? Ellis feels the same way about the whole scenario. What do you think? Could we have just been too dehydrated and delusional? Or were we not welcomed by the New Hampshire wilderness?
Epic views, waterfall mists, summit sunsets. It's all better outside. And with All Trails, you can discover the best of nature with over 450,000 trails around the world. Download the free app today and find your next adventure.
Now this has my mind boggled a little bit because I'm not sure what happened here. I do wonder if maybe there was a kind of glitch, a time slip type thing happening. I do wonder also if there were any more footprints in the mud the day after, when they took off. Interesting though, that one name and then that became many. So what, did they sneak in and rewrite it? Don't believe that. I do really think it was some sort of time slip type thing. Now, whether that's related to Bigfoot, because apparently they do have the ability to slip in and out of timelines. Nobody really knows what they are, let's be honest. I'd love to know what you guys think. Well, that's it from me today. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll catch you again tomorrow. Take care, everyone.